All right, sit rep. Here I am. This is like day 4, I think, of me having the car in my garage, so I got to get it out of here pretty soon. A couple things that I've been doing, just waiting for the intake manifold to get back from the machine shop. So you can see this line right here in the back. That's going to be the fuel return, which I have routed up into the fender, coming around, and you kind of lose sight of it. It's going to come up here through the radiator core support and then cut over and loop into there. So that'll be the return line, which is labeled vent right here. But so we got next, I talked to the owner of the car about getting rid of these crappy aftermarket gauges. You see that one right there? That's the oil pressure line, and it was leaking. So I talked him into it. He's just gonna get rid of it because it's junk. Plugged it there. Did a good cleaning of this right here. I usually just use a wire brush to scrape it. Followed up, or I'm sorry, a razor blade to scrape it. Followed it with a steel bristled brush, and then ultimately I'm going to use brake clean. So you can see I plugged all the ports right here. I don't really care about the exhaust port. Those right there. And that way when I go to spray it off and finish cleaning it up, we won't have any crap coming back into the engine. So speaking of crap coming back into the engine, I'm just going to whip around here to the intake manifold. So this looks a lot better than it did last time it was on video. I took it to the machine shop, and for 80 bucks, which was surprisingly cheap, you can see the seam, which is a lot more visible than it is in person. It doesn't look that great because you can see that line, but it actually, you can barely even feel it. So it looks worse than it is. And this will all be covered up with RTV and filled in anyway. So those what were deep pockets where this was almost welded all the way through, that dude had to have been on this thing for a couple hours just filling this thing up. So fill it up, let it get hot, move to the next side, fill it up while this one cools, and so on and so forth. So it took a little bit longer than I expected, but for 80 bucks, I can't complain. Now, here's the thing with cheap machine work is you can see all these flecks of aluminum in here. So normally when you take it to a machine shop, in my experience anyway, when you have this kind of work done, they'll actually end up tanking it and getting it cleaned off after the fact. But you know, you get what you pay for, and you know, I'm satisfied with the work, and for the extra 5-10 minutes it'll take for me to clean it up, I'm happy with it. So this intake manifold, it's a Holley Dominator 2. I don't think they're even in production anymore, so it was pretty important to save it, and the fact that it was only 80 bucks to get it fixed was shockingly good. So I'm really happy with that. Next step here, I'm gonna get the after cleaning off that intake manifold, put it back in place, get it sealed up and buttoned up, to replace these super lame Allen head bolts. I went ahead and picked these up, which I mean, they're just expensive bolts. I like these because of the get that thing to focus. I like these because the 12-point head, and the fact that the head is the same diameter as the shaft or the bolt itself. It helps you get in there, and you know, with wrenches and stuff like that, it's not easy sometimes to get a 1/2-inch wrench, but it's going to be a lot easier to get a 3/8 wrench into the little pockets there where the bolts are. So happy with that. Overall, the price isn't that bad. Right now I'm looking at about 200 bucks worth of parts to get this thing installed. That's over and above the actual fuel injection kit itself, and that's going to include things like the metal pipe, or pardon me, the tubing for the return line. It's going to include, you know, all the clamps and stuff. I got to go down and clamp and get everything cleaned up down underneath the car. There's a fuel tank sending unit with the return adapter, so we don't have to punch holes in the fuel tank or anything like that. So, you know, there was a lot of thought put into this as far as trying to keep it as, trying to use as many factory parts as possible to avoid the weak link of having to do shady custom stuff, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's looking pretty good here. Next step is, like I said, just going to be spray all this stuff off, get that intake manifold cleaned up and get it put back in, and hopefully we will be on track to win. So that's the update for now, and I'll come back when there's more work done.